Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to our afternoon session. Let me start off first by saying thank you to all the gentlemen that we have in the audience. I see you sprinkled across the room. A round of applause, absolutely. We are, after all, talking about inclusive growth here and inclusive society. So, gentlemen, we appreciate you being here. Talking about an inclusive society and inclusive growth, I think we can all recognize that economic growth across Asia Pacific must be more inclusive, all right, if we are to reduce poverty at the end of the day. And to achieve this, women must be allowed to reach their full potential. We all know that. Without women's participation in the economy, there can be no inclusive growth. And this inclusion cannot happen without the partnership, strong partnership, between the public sector and the private sector right across, right? And of course civil society too. I have the distinct pleasure of being the moderator for what I think is an amazing panel. Congrats to the organizing committee for pulling together this fantastic panel. I'm struck in awe. I don't know. People know I'm not usually speechless, but I am speechless. A quick round of introductions. Wendy Tulecki, who is head of Women Entrepreneurs Finance Initiative with the World Bank Group. We have Chetna Sinha, who is founder of Mandashi Bank, and many of you know she's an absolute rock star in the NGO world. We have Regine Wasmuth from L'Oreal, and she's the Asia Pacific Sourcing Center Director. And last but not least, Rahima Abdul-Rahim Ima, who is Director of Public Policy Southeast Asia with none other than Facebook. So an amazing panel. What about diversity, right? From different parts of the world, different walks of life, amazing. So Wendy, maybe let's start with you at the far end over there. In your role as head of the Secretariat for the Women Entrepreneurs Finance Initiative, WIFI, I believe it's called, tell us and help frame for us what's really needed to build the right ecosystem that allows SMEs and MSMEs to actually thrive and grow.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everybody. It's a delight to be here, and thank you to the organizers for pulling this together and read of an eminent panel, so very delighted to be in the company of these incredible women. Maybe I'll say a few words about what the Women Entrepreneurs Finance Initiative is so I can get to the point about the ecosystem. We are an initiative that's housed in the World Bank, but it's funded by 14 donor countries that have put their money into a program to support women entrepreneurs in emerging markets. And we do that through our work with 6 of the multilateral development banks around the world, which enables us to do projects in over 50 countries around the world, and that number will grow. We look at the women's entrepreneurship space as a key element for the growth of the economies that we're working in, for the stability of the economies that they're in, and for the empowerment of women and for building greater, more equal societies. But we try to address the constraints that women face in an ecosystem manner. So we're looking at the constraints that we talk about 5 C's. And actually this panel is a perfect example of the 5 C's that we're looking at, because the first challenge women face is capital. Often they don't have the capital that they need to grow their businesses. We know that there's a $1.5 trillion financing gap for women around the world. It's biggest here in East Asia, so there's significant gaps around the world, but the Asia gap is the biggest one, actually. And on the equity side, we know very little of the equity funding that goes into VC acceleration, and private equity space goes to women, and that's true around the world. The second is contracts, and we have L'Oreal here, which is a great example of an organization that's looking to figure out how to build more diverse value chains. And women around the world need to have access to markets. They need to have access to corporate procurement programs, to public sector procurement programs, because right now the data tells us that only 1 to 2% of all sourcing by multinationals goes to women-owned businesses. So we want to find ways to work with the private sector to increase those numbers. And we have some activities that we're doing in that area. Another of the C's is community and connections. So this is where platforms like Facebook are really essential in building communities and building connections, not only between women who can support each other, but also to deepen the networks that women have with men. Because what we see is, while women have deeper networks, they're not as useful for them in their businesses. And so how do you make those really productive connections for women is a really, really critical question. And then there's something that we all deal with, the last 2 C's, is capacity and making sure women have the capacity to access finance, to tell their story, to access equity, to access contracts, and that they understand what standards they should be operating to. And then finally, the cultural norms, the confidence, and that's the final C, is really having women who can understand what they want to be doing, take the risks that they need to take, and be confident in doing that. So we look at all of these things, and we work through banks, we work through digital finance platforms, we work with corporates, we work across the ecosystem and with governments, of course, on eliminating the policy constraints to women in business. So all of these things are important, and they're important everywhere. They're not just important in Asia or just in Africa, but they're different in different regions, and we see that the programs really need to be tailored to the specific women and the specific markets that they're in. So maybe I'll leave it there, and then we can come back to maybe some specific examples.
Absolutely, thank you, Wendy. Chetna, if I can ask you, and the work that you've been doing, the experience of working and helping women in rural India specifically, what are you seeing? Especially, I know that you've been designing and pulling together financial products that cater to these women. Can you share with the audience here some of your experiences, what you've seen, and what actually has been counterintuitive in the work that you've been doing?
Thanks, Georgette, and I'm really, really excited to be a part of this panel and also to be a part of this Women's Forum Asia. Let me share with you that when I'm looking at here so many young girls participating, I felt like, I should share my journey 20 years back when I shifted from Mumbai and went to a very small village in India. And I had in a mind that I'll be working with women. I'll be like, I've had an education. These women have not educated. So there would so many things they would require. And I started building a women organization, and I started working there. One woman, her name Kantabai, she came to me and she said that I want to open a saving account. She was doing her business on the street, sharpening the weeders. She didn't have a house. So my obvious question was that, Kantabai, do you have money to save? And you know what she said? She said that I do my business on the road. I stay with my family on the road. In summer, there is a 47 degrees Celsius, and I need a shelter. I want to buy a tarpaulin sheet, and for that, I want to open a saving account. I was just like, she's not asking any money from the government, not asking any grant. What she's asking is very simple opportunity to save her hard-earned money. And so I went with her to different banks to open her account. Banks denied, saying that we cannot open an account with who is saving less than half cent a day. She's not an affordable client for us. I felt that if banks are not opening the account, why not start a bank for women like Kantabai? And we applied for the banking license to the Central Bank of India. Most of our women were... But it wasn't a happiest moment. Most of our women were non-literate, and they had a thumb as far as their signature is concerned when you have to give all your proposal to the bank. And the license was rejected because majority of our women have never been to the school. They do not know to read and write. While coming from Mumbai to the village, I was weeping. And I shared with our women that we couldn't get license because nobody could read and write, many of our women. You know what women said? We cannot read and write, but we can count. And and they said that we learned to read and write, and after 5 months, we applied again. And at that time, I didn't go alone. With me, 15 women accompanied to Central Bank of India. And they told the officer that you rejected the license because we are non-literate. You know, they challenged him and said, tell us to calculate the interest of any principal amount. Oh. If we fail, don't issue the license. Tell your officers to do it without calculator and see who can calculate faster.
Love that. I love that.
So, needless to say, we got a banking license. Mandeshi Bank is the first rural women's bank in India, banking with more than 500,000 women, with no outside support, no outside equity investors, all women savings, women capital, and women loans, and it's more than $100 million bank. So we'll continue.
Did I not say she was a rock star in the NGO space? That's great, thank you. And Chetna, I think everybody will want to hear more about your experiences and a lot of the stories. I think that's what we need. We need more of these stories to cut across. Let's move over to Regine. Regine, you have an amazing program, and let me make sure I get it correct. It's L'Oreal's Solidarity Sourcing Program for Financial Institutions, for financial inclusion. First, congratulations. I hear that you won an award for this very program from the United Nations, from the UN, and it happened only yesterday?
Just yesterday, and I get wonderful pictures from the team.
Ladies and gentlemen, please.
Thank you, thank you. I will forward all your thanks. So first of all, yes, thank you very much for being here. It's really my pleasure. So it's the first time for me to attend, and it's really a pleasure, an additional pleasure after the one I had yesterday evening, to be able to speak about our Solidarity Sourcing program, which is really already initiated 9 years ago. And it's true that it was a long journey. It's still a long journey. It's not something that is an easy walk, I would say. But what is interesting, it's really our, I would say, to make it simple, the Solidarity Sourcing program is, it's not philanthropy, okay? It's not charity at all. It's about business, okay? So, and when we do business, it's really that we take advantage, being working in sourcing, leveraging our purchasing power, okay, to provide access to underprivileged people. So that's really the story behind this program. When I look back, it's true that the journey was not easy. It took us a lot of time to define the scope. So we defined very precisely the scope we want to target. So meaning we have different communities that we want to address. It's like, for sure, women empowerment and business, women business owners. It's also about handicapped people. It's about veterans. It's about, we have we have plenty of different communities, also small business, because sometimes for small companies, it's not that easy to access to L'Oréal. So, and this is also something that we want to promote. So it's a quite, I would say, a unique program when I look at it, because as I said, it's about business, and we don't compromise at all on our operational needs. Okay, so and each, I would say, each. Today we have it took us time to have this robust system because we publish the number of beneficiaries the same way that we publish our financial figures. So it's audited, and it has to be auditable because we want something we want to be sincere by engaging these communities, and not short term, but on really long term. So that's a bit the program. So as of today, when I look back in 2018, so it's roughly 57,000 people that were underprivileged, that did not have access to a job, that could, through this program, through the business that we are doing with our partners, get access or retain a job. It's about job and a decent income. Okay, so 57,000, so it's huge, but at the same time, it's small when we look at the worldwide population. So still we have ambition. Probably I will share a bit later. But so this is a really, I would say, a program that is initiated by sourcing people and that has been deployed worldwide. So wherever you go today, the program or the project is a bit more than 200 projects that we have been able to drive. And wherever you go, is it in Africa, is it in India, is it in China, you will find some program or some people that have been able to get access to a job thanks to this program. So we are extremely proud of the recognition from United Nations yesterday for this long-term journey. I say long journey because it's really about finding the right, I would say, NGO to support us, because for sure we never do alone. We are not expert on that. So we get support from NGO. We get support from sometimes a startup or associations, whatever. And if I perhaps can share one example, the one that has been awarded yesterday evening is quite emblematic one, I would say. It's one project that we have initiated in 2010 when we started the program in China, where we have a lot of women or people that have to move from their hometown, sometimes a very poor hometown, to cities to get access to a job. So we discussed with one supplier, and we found out that they were hiring some people from a kind of same area, a really remote and poor area of China. And in fact, we managed to convince him to relocate the plant so that as of today, this project is permitting to give access to almost 500 women, mostly. And it's a very incredible story, because at the end of the day, what is extremely interesting is that these women have access to a job, have access to a very decent salary, but I think what is also very important is that they have also access to their family, because now they are back to their hometown, they can take care, and the testimony that we get from these women are really very interesting, getting back, being able to take care of the parents and of the kids. So that's one of the examples, but we are also operating on raw materials, working with women farmers. And we were just discussing, because we have also some very interesting projects in India, and that we are conducting.
Thank you for sharing, Regine. Ima, when you think of Facebook, we automatically think of, obviously, technology and innovation. So speak to us and share with us how you see the role that, and what's being done on the technology front to help these small women SME owners and help them to scale and to grow and obviously put them on this path of prosperity?
First of all, thank you very much for having me on the panel to organizers. And I think it's also a privilege and honor for us to have you as the moderator, Georgette.
Thank you.
So for us, I think one of the things that when we think Facebook technology, it is a platform. It's a platform where we provide a space for people to connect and for people to build communities. And I think that's where we can act as a leveler or provide that platform. It's, you know, I've encountered in the work that I do now with Facebook, and even before I joined Facebook, I've encountered a lot of women who are building their own business. They're entrepreneurs. They have very little money. They are just, they perhaps are single moms. They want to start selling whatever they can make. And the first place they can go is Facebook or Instagram, which is also part of our family of apps, and where they can then put their goods on their Instagram, and actually that's where they end up selling it. And for them, that is a place where they can then, it's free of charge. They can put it out there, and it's word of mouth. And oftentimes, you know, you are able to find these goods, and so we recognize this, and we continue to support, and we provide tools for women entrepreneurs on the platform for them to be able to sell. We have Marketplace, we have different tools and platforms within the family of apps as well. But on the outside as well, again, like I said, we think about connecting people. But one of the things that we're moving towards as well is building communities. Facebook, we're at Facebook and across the family of apps, that's what we're trying to build. We're trying to build communities. And these communities become a lot more significant as women empower other women. So you have communities of women who are young, you know, starting out their own business. There are entrepreneurs. There's single moms. It can be very specific. There's like large communities that are just entrepreneurs. Those in Indonesia, for example, where I am from, you have women entrepreneurs selling only hijabs, scarves, or you have a community of people who are just starting out, or they're single moms, or they live in a community, they live in this city, and that's how they connect. And so we provide that platform to allow people to connect. And when I talk about communities and supporting women, I think these communities, these groups that we have in Facebook, we find how significant they are and how important of a role that they become for women across all levels. And one of the ones that I think that really touched me the most, one of the ones I've learned about very recently when I joined Facebook, was a group of women that supported other women experiencing, unfortunately, either sexual violence or domestic violence. And I think in terms of inclusion, I think those are women who often are not addressed and are not, yeah. And
Ima, this is a topic that's very close to your heart, is it not?
Yeah, it is. It is a topic very close to my heart. Before I joined, and currently still, before I joined Facebook, I was very active in Indonesia as well, helping survivors of sexual violence. And we found that through social media, through Facebook, we found communities that needed to start talking about it. They didn't even want help. They just wanted people to talk. And that's where you find communities. And from that's actually how we started. It was through social media, it was through Facebook, through Instagram, that people started finding out about the survivor circle that we have and how to start talking about things. One of the things that we did through the work that the group did is also looking at the economic impact of sexual violence.
Right.
The economic impact of domestic violence. And that's where we see communities really seeing, okay, it's not just a matter of excluding them. It's a matter, if you exclude these women as well, there's an economic impact. I think there's a World Bank study that came out that the economic impact of sexual violence is 3.7% of the GDP, wow, which is more than double of some countries what they spend on education. Sure. So this is something that, that again, there are groups that are, so the group that I found out about was actually in Pakistan. one of the countries where it falls under our Asia Pacific region here at Facebook. So the group actually is supporting those who are victims or survivors of domestic violence. And it's a difference of life and death. It's a really these groups, because the story that I was told, and this was a story told by the group founder, that they actually managed to help a woman who was in hiding from her husband, and was managed to be rescued through the help of the Facebook group. So there's a lot of, the impact can be small, but the impact can be, again, life and death, but also on more building these communities, you can find like-minded people. And I think that goes to what Wendy was saying earlier about one of the 5 C's of building communities. And hopefully through platforms like Facebook and through Instagram, we are able to build those communities. So.
And picking up on that point, exactly, because there is this thread of this commonality of communities here. Wendy, why don't you tell us a little bit more about some of the, drill down some of the examples and the work that you do, whether it's in this part of the world or otherwise?
Very happy to do that. So we, as I said, we work through the Multilateral Development Bank. So in this region, it's primarily the Asian Development Bank, the World Bank Group, which includes both the World Bank and IFC. And we work with the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development in Central Asia. So as I mentioned, the programs are really quite broad. And I'll just give you an example, because I was in the Philippines a few days ago attending the launch of an event with an insurance company. And this is an insurance company that's a subsidiary of a bank. And they have, this is a non-life insurance company. And we've been through, actually, this is an IFC project. So through IFC, we've been working with this insurance firm to develop an offering for women, which they've never done. They've never kind of thought about how they could offer this product specifically to women. And they spent a lot of time looking at what the insurance needs were for women, how women look at risk, how women think about risks in the context of their business, but also in the context of their family, and how women manage those risks. And they've introduced products that are really quite different from their standard products, looking at things like what happens when your child care situation breaks down, what happens when your employees in your company have to leave because their child care has broken down. How do women deal with the risks of the assets in their company, and those might have an effect on their children's livelihood if the business goes sour, if they have a major accident or the assets get destroyed. So they've developed this package of insurance products that really takes into consideration the different way that women think about risk. And one of the things that we try to encourage in all of these programs is also not just thinking about how the products might serve the women better, but also that we have to help the organizations that are developing them think about how their own biases and their own, the way that they're staffed, the way that they're managed, how they really can walk the talk. And so always this work includes a part about how that organization is structured, how they promote women, how they build more flexible work streams for their own staff, and how they eliminate unconscious bias in the work that they're doing. So that's an example of an insurance company, but we also work on other activities. For example, we worked with Uber to do a study of how their business model interacts with women and is positive for women both as consumers or as drivers, and how the platform can become a better platform for women. So, what they found was that women like these platforms. They think they're more secure than existing platforms, but their biggest fear about them is also security. So how can they build in some of the features that would make women feel more secure as they either use this platform as a work opportunity, as an employment opportunity, or to get themselves to work or their families to where they need to go. So we've worked with a fund in Pakistan, for example, to help them think about how they can do more with a gender lens investing. So how do they think about building pipeline? If it's all men in a fund management structure, they might not be tapped into the networks that women entrepreneurs are tapped into. They have to think about things differently. Hopefully they can bring women investment officers into the team or into management so that they will be tapped into those networks. But one way or another, they need to go that extra mile to try to have a gender lens on their investment, and also make sure they don't bring their own unconscious biases into the discussions they're having with entrepreneurs and the pitches, because we know things like if a investor is asking a woman about their business, they're going to ask more about the downside risks. Like, what are all the risks, and tell me about all the risks. So the woman ends up talking about all the negative sides of their business and how they're trying to address them. With men, when men are pitching, they talk more about the upside. So tell me how much growth, how big will it be? And women tend to be more careful in their assumptions and the way they project their business, and so they get penalized because valuations are lower, they're more realistic, and then they overperform, but it's kind of too late because their valuations have already been set. So we work across all these different areas, and we try to think about that element of what's the product, what's the offering, are you getting the product or service out to the women, but also how are you internalizing your thinking about this?
Thank you. Chetna, tell us a little bit about what you're doing, and how are you seeing that multiplier effect almost happen by helping women, and they in turn help other communities of women?
So let me, again, I have a lot of stories to share.
And we love the stories, by the way.
And also you learn so much, right? And it's also very interesting that when women decide to do something, they never come alone. They come with family, they come with community, and then they talk about the solutions. So I'll tell you, and how sometimes we make mistakes. So I would just like to share that when we built up bank and we were doing, many women said that we cannot come to the bank. We work whole day. And I was like, there was so much excitement when we were getting the license. So, but then women said that we cannot come to the bank. Bank decided that, okay, bank will go to them. So Mandeshi started a doorstep banking. Now, while we were doing that, and again, now, of course, the technology is there. You are having mobile banking and all. So when we were working with women on mobile banking, and we were designing the product, we said that in mobile banking, women would require a PIN number. And so we were telling our women that, we will help you to remember the PIN number. You go through financial literacy, you go to digital literacy. Our women were very firm. They said, we don't want PIN number. And our team was telling, no, we'll help you. We'll help you to remember. They said, no, find some other solutions. We don't want PIN number. So then we worked out and we linked our mobile banking with biometric. In the days of data and data protection, I know what I'm talking about. But then when we did that biometric, you know what, our women, when we did the pilot of that, how they reacted. They said that anybody can steal my PIN number, anybody can force me and ask me my PIN number, nobody can take my thumb, right? So they are so smart. And then you realize that whatever innovations we do in the labs or whatever innovations we do, there is these communities actually in the field, they know so much. And it's a matter of listening to them. And when now our women are using mobile banking, who had never been to the school, never had a book or a pen, but they are using mobile banking. You know what it echoes in my head is that what these women are saying is, never provide poor solutions to poor people. Yeah? Yeah. They are smart. And not only that, whatever solutions they come up, those solutions just only does not struggle to come out of the poverty, but these people, they continuously think of generation of wealth. Because every time, whatever work they do, they have very clear mission in the mind that I want my family to be educated, I want my family to be healthy, and I want a prosperity. It's not a struggle against poverty only, it's a building the prosperous world. So when you have such teachers around the community, then whatever you build is going to shine, right? So I would just say that these are my teachers, these are women who have taken this Mandeshi Bank and our business. So we have a business school, we have a chambers of commerce, our women run radio. I can go on and on, but I would just say that it is so important that maybe around all of you also, there must be some teachers who have not gone to the school, but they have a wisdom to share with you. And those wisdoms are very important in our life and in our generation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Perhaps just...
Please, go ahead.
No, just it makes echo
Please.
to what you say and the journey the women went through. Because we have, when we have started the program, we had a long journey in Africa, in Burkina Faso, where we have started to work with women, farmers, that were not educated, exactly as you said, not being able to read or not even, but to count, exactly. So, and you see, this is a process that we have, that's one dimension that we have to tackle when we enter in this kind of fair trade concept with these farmers. Because it's also about, it's a long journey to educate properly. And that's why we also get support from NGO, because it's not our métier, because it's others' métier, but it's really very important, as you said, to educate and we learn a lot. The team, honestly, I think they learn as much as all these women have learned from the different support they could get.
I'm just reminded of the fact that I remember doing some field work and going around this part of the world, and you ask women why they actually, take up some of the training programs that are offered to them by the NGOs. Consistently in all the markets, they'll always rank #1 so that I can send my children to school. #1, without fail, okay? Education, right? So that they can have a better life. #2, they will say, so that I can put food on the table and I can take care of my mother, my father, my grandmother, and all that. So taking care of elders, right? So that's always consistently #2. Husbands, for some reason, usually like #4. Don't ask me why, consistently. And here's the really interesting thing. They go through this whole list, and right at the end, right last of it all, they are almost sheepish. They're ashamed almost to say, and shy to say, I do it for myself. Right? So women tend to always do everything for others. They take care of the others, and they put themselves at the end. But, so here, and I'm conscious of time, we're wrapping up, speed round. I'd like to hear from you. Is there one thing that you would like this audience to take away to action actually, and what can they do to help put women first and foremost and help them, put them on this path of prosperity? Ima, please.
Okay, thank you. I loved what Chetna said about women. When women move forward, they move together.
Yes.
And I think that's very telling. And from what you said just now, women putting themselves last. And I think that's also part of why women move together, is to make sure that we look out for each other. And so my ask, I think, is, first of all, connect. One of the things I've, before joining Facebook, I spent 20 years in the NGO think tank world, in Chetna's world. But what I felt was like, we attend these forums and we exchange business cards. And then 2 days later, the business card goes into a box and we forget, or else we're busy with the day-to-day grind. So I think my ask is make meaningful connections. And when I say meaningful connections is finding out what the other person does. to find out where it can connect with what you're doing, or where you can help, or where you can connect, or where you can create a group, or where you can log on to Facebook and actually
Absolutely.
and create communities and create groups, because that's where you can find people. I love the stories that Chetna talks about, and I hope those stories are out there. We would love to put that on the platform as well, to tell the stories, because those are stories that inspire. I think it's very important for women. And you started out what you said earlier by looking out at the audience and seeing young women. Young women need role models. And I think you're a wonderful role model, by the way. And I think role models and connecting with them, and it goes both ways. So connect, I think, would be my ask for the audience.
Absolutely. Wendy, if I can ask you, what's your key takeaway? You want this audience to action.
Sure.
It's about acting here.
Yes.
Taking charge.
I think for me, what we really are about is activating the private sector to think about how they can serve women better, and in my case, focus on women entrepreneurs. So how can banks do more to lend to women? How can funds do more to invest in women? How can corporates buy more from women? And so first, if you're in those kind of companies, the task is to think about how your company might provide more access to women, not only on the service side, though, but to also think about what the culture is internally, and what are the unintended biases that you have in the company, or the structures in the company that really may stop these kinds of connections from happening. So we don't always understand what the consequences are of certain things, like how many women you have in your teams and your boards and your management, but those are really critically important as you're trying to design ways for companies to serve women more.
Thank you. Regine, maybe if I can ask you.
Okay, so as I said, 57,000 beneficiaries is a small number. We are proud of it, but it's still a small number. We have very high ambition, really, to accelerate and to scale up. So that means we'll not be able to do it alone, and we would like to drag some other companies with us. Think about when you go back, or perhaps you are the one also placing sometimes some orders or doing biddings. Think about the purchasing power that you have. What do you do with that? How you can take it as an opportunity, to provide jobs to underprivileged communities. Imagine if we would put all our spend together. Today we have 57,000. So I leave you to imagine. So I think there is no limit to the ambition that we could have, but all together. So I think it's very key. I think to share our expertise and our reach. So really to scale further.
Thank you. I like that message, and it goes back again to collectively coming together to find solutions. Chetna, if I can ask you your takeaway for everybody here.
So actually, I have just come from the annual general meeting of our bank, where all women were there, and it was an AGM. And we were talking about, I was just talking to women that I'll be coming to this women's forum which talks about economics, and coming to Singapore, like where those capital markets are huge, right? So I was just telling them that also. And so in AGM we decided to launch a fund of $100 million fund to invest in women's enterprise, and we are just thinking, we maybe launched it and we are asking for investors. So I was asking our women that, I'll be going to Singapore, and I should say that invest in women. And so what they said? They said, we'll manage to get those $1 million, just don't bother. Go there and say that capital we can take care of. But the main thing is that our courage is the capital. And I felt that their courage is my capital, and it can be yours.
Oh, it's lovely.
Too.
Courage is definitely our capital, definitely. You might want to say something else.
One last thing, as I told, to connect. One of the programs that we have as well at Facebook is it's called She Means Business, and it basically connects entrepreneurs, women entrepreneurs from in different cities where it's actually an APEC. It's an Asia Pacific. It was started here by the policy programs team here in Singapore, and it's now reached across the world. So if you want to have access, look at it further, shemeansbusiness.fb.com. So that's something if you want to start connecting.
Thank you. Wise words. Ladies and gentlemen, I am very conscious of the fact that we have overrun our time, but I think we had such great insights from our panel here, and I know we loved all the stories and all the great nuggets here. So please put your hands together as an appreciation for the panelists today. And I think just one last parting thought. I started the panel by thanking the gentlemen for being in the room and being brave enough and being enlightened to be in this room with us here. So let me end the session by again addressing the men in the room and going back to the topic of inclusion, that it is all about a partnership. And we look forward to the men in this room partnering with us on our journey. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time.